Hello and welcome to Matter About Sports for yet another live stream. And today we are here to talk about the Asia Cup squad because Indian team has announced their official squad for Asia Cup. It's a 17-member squad, or maybe you can say 18, with the including travel reserve for the Asia Cup, which will start from September the 2nd. So it's a mighty selection Indian team has made. Most of them picked themselves, but there were certainly some question marks on players, but they've also been included in the team, and also with the good news of Jasprit Bumrah making a comeback and everything. We'll be talking about it throughout the course of the stream regarding that. I have Antariksh with me. Antariksh, I mean, what a day. Finally, we have the squad right in front of us after all the debates, after all the speculation we've all had over the long period of time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember both of us discussing whether Shreyas Iyer and Rahul, do you put them? Do you not? What do you do? Because you're not full of confidence. Because when was the last time they held a bat in their hand? So we don't know about that much. But as you said, the controversy is out now. It's for the good. Hopefully that they both are back, and at least on the paper we have some experience in our team, showing in our team,
Yeah.
and we just going to cross our fingers that they have regained their form while being in hospital, as they say. So because
Yeah.
when they're on the field, hopefully they get and going. Yeah,
Absolutely, and that's where we can put the squad on the screen for all of you guys to see what the team is like. Now, if you look at this team, it's of course Rohit Sharma, who's the captain of the team. Shubman Gill, have a lot of confusion as to whether he's there or not. He is there in the squad because things just went down wire because of that particular graphic which showed no Shubman Gill as the team. Rishad Kishore is your wicket keeper. Virat Kohli there, Shreyas Iyer, so that's a big inclusion. KL Rahul. The biggest surprise is Tilak Varma, who has now played a
yeah,
one-day international in his career, makes himself into the squad. Surya Kumar Yadav, after having possibly the worst format in one day, average 13 in the last 9 games, is in the squad as well. Hardik Pandya, of course, is a vice captain. There were speculations that he was not going to be the vice captain. He's going to be stripped of the vice captaincy. He makes it to the squad. Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, Shardul Thakur, Jasprit Bumrah, who's been bowling well in Ireland, also makes it. Mohammad Shami makes a comeback. Mohammad Siraj and Prasidh Krishna, a big surprising name once again, who's bowled well in Ireland, makes it to the team. And of course, Sanju Samson as a traveling reserve. Now, we did speak in depth about Shreyas Iyer versus KL Rahul, but
yeah.
Samson dropped. Why? We will come to that. We will come to that particular thing. But do you reckon it is only fair on these two to make it to the team ultimately? Because if you look at this particular era year in itself, we've not had a lot of one day internationals, but whenever these both have played, they made an impact in terms of their contribution. And that's where I'll bring up some stats for you. Maybe to start off with this. KL Rahul versus Iyer in India, because the World Cup is going in India. They've had a phenomenal record playing in India because 833 runs and 717 runs, an average of 52, an average of 51, 200s, 550s, 100s, 650s. You have to say these both really put themselves up there for selection just based on their meritocracy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As I just pointed out that earlier when we were discussing, I think these two picked themselves because let's get it straight. If it wasn't for the World Cup, I don't think they would have made it so quickly back into the Indian team. There was an Asia Cup, suppose, and I mean, these were the two batsmen who were out for such a long time. So, wo itni jaldi wapas nahi aate into the team. They have been quote unquote kind of rushed back into the squad, and that's because if they don't pick them right now, it's like you're almost not picking up these two for the semi-final and sort of thinking about them being ready for the final, which is
Yeah,
indeed the World Cup. So I think these are the games. This is the game, the pressure game against Pakistan, I think, which is on 2nd of September, if I'm not wrong. So
yeah,
that and all of the pressure surrounding and the controversy surrounding it. I mean, it'll be very good for us to see them how they play, how they integrate into the team, and as you showed the numbers there, they are perfect ODI numbers. I mean, it's a strike rate of more than almost nearing 100, and then add to that an average of above 50,
yeah,
and it's fantastic. You can forget that away form. You can forget those away stats for a bit because for
yeah.
the next 3-4 months we are hyperventilating into just cricket in India as if it just
Yeah.
existed in India.
Yeah, these are the career overall stats. Just to look at it, I mean, even one day international, these both have been really good. If you look at their overall stats as well, it's not that these both are bad ODI players. And KL Rahul is one person who's got tremendous amount of flack, but if you look at his one day career, it's been pretty decent in comparison with any other format of his. And just look at if you look at the performance they put against top six ODI teams, which includes them playing in Australia, New Zealand, and England. They've been very
Yeah.
impressive, even just in their away stats and at the same time home stats as well. Now that is where you're very, very, very tempted in terms of going for these both. These both are your, before we go to the leading wicket takers, well, if these both are your, you can say, the two main walls in the middle of the batting order, because you really saw a lot of issues with India after in the 2019 World Cup. If you look at the post 2019 World Cup, these both have been tremendous, averaging 65 and 50, scoring 783 runs, 200s and 550s. I just in my mind one of the season in New Zealand comes into my mind in 2020, where India were losing 3 wickets in power play consistently, but these both were trying to save the ship. Though India lost that series, but you could just see there was a lot of solidity in the middle of the batting order. But Prakash has also asked how is KL and Shreyas making it into the team. I think it's just based on these numbers, nothing else. Just based on these numbers, and because with KL you also get that extra added option of wicket keeping. But that's where my major question comes now. Ajit Agarkar made it very clear that Shreyas is 100% fit. But if you look at the squad, KL Rahul, who was recovering from his injury, faced up with another injury during his recovery. Now, after him playing that practice match, he's got a niggle, and they're expected him to be fit by the second or third game. Now, that's not a good thing. Now, that is where the biggest question mark comes. Now, on what basis are you carrying a semi-fit player just for the reason that he has scored a lot of runs previously, and just for the fact that okay, let's just hope that he comes back into form, and let's just hope that he recovers in time. So that is not a good thing over here. Other than that, everything seems good, but carrying a semi-fit player and ousting out Sanju Samson, though he's part of the reserves, but if that was the case, then Sanju Samson should have been the primary player for this particular tournament.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the last statement, because if you're carrying a player who's going to be available in maybe the third game, which I don't know how many games we have to play in the Asia Cup overall, like you can add a couple of more games if we do qualify for the knockouts there. But, I think Sanju Samson deserved to be in that main squad because you could have kept KL Rahul there, and then maybe halfway down the tournament, if you've at least seen like Shreyas Iyer or someone, or even one of the lads who are not performing, you put them there, and just to see how KL Rahul is, you put them back in. But in terms of him being in the overall squad, as I said, guys, like we don't have like much choice. When if you roll back the team there, it's Ishan Kishan, and there just isn't much depth in terms of experience. As I said, if there's Tilak Verma, so like हमारा middle order सब add करके, if you remove Hardik Pandya, who's an all rounder by the way, if you look at 3, 4, 5, or 4, 4, 5, 6 for that matter, it's not even 100 ODI games together. Which add Shubman Gill to the list, so that's like 1, 4, 5, 6. That's not even 100 games, or in and about 100 games, and you take that to the World Cup. It's pretty. It's like a borderline risky move with a potential high side on the reward. But as we saw, these guys, as blunt as that sounds, almost don't want to play an ODI. These guys want to maybe play 2.5 games of T20 in 50 overs, and which isn't really a good sign because that's not everything and all you want at each and every point of time. And we've seen with the likes of Shreyas Iyer, KL Rahul, obviously the maestros of it, Kohli and Sharma. But these two come, the guys are coming back. These two gentlemen, we've seen that they can handle ships, they can handle sinking ships, and they can take that situation maybe in 84 for 3 or 60 for 4 kind of a situation and turn it into a 260, 270 by the end of 50 overs, which might salvage a game which was otherwise looking gloom. Whereas on the other hand, if we're 60 for 3 with the current lot, they'd get us 156 all out, but in 30 overs. But what हम क्या करें उस तेज खेलने का if we can't play the 50 overs. So that's where my stand is. It doesn't seem fair, but हमारे पास options क्या है?
Yeah, that makes sense because ultimately it comes down to the options you have, and the best options you had was to pick up Shreyas and KL and maybe give them a lateral entry, because what else do you have at this point? Other players are trying to test it. Surya Kumar Yadav is a interesting inclusion there. Let's talk about him there. We've seen enough of him in T20 cricket. But the one day player Surya Kumar Yadav is averages less than 21. Three consecutive ducks against Australia earlier this year. Went to West Indies, did not score a lot of runs, highest of 38. Did not score a single 50 in the last 7 to 8 innings. Not the best of players in the one day format, but he still gets an entry in comparison with the Sanju Samson. 13 innings, averages 51, scored a 50 in his last one day outing. And doesn't make any sense for you at all, because that certainly feels like a player has been robbed of his chance, because Tilak Verma has not played a single one day. Just
Yeah.
based on two T20Is, you picked them for the one day team. And Sanju Samson has really put an effort in the one day format. Let's just put his T20 performance aside, but at least in that one format, you've not picked him at all. So this is where the question marks really comes into play, isn't it?
They do. They do. You're absolutely spot on. And we've discussed this countless number of times that the format line between the Indian cricket, you could consider IPL, T20, Test, and ODI as one format for Indian selection. We're almost like a liberal form of a cricket board which doesn't care about boundaries and sort of that, because we we judge a player, or we judge their performance based on the the hype of them in the market, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Sanju Samson again, and I don't speak it from one example. I speak of it because again we are backing Surya Kumar Yadav to win us that one game out of 20. That one game in which again he'd play a T20, a long T20 innings. He might get a 120 in 60 balls or 70 balls. We're backing him to do that one game wonder in maybe 15-20 games. We're not picking up a steady Sanju Samson who might give us average results in like 5-6 games, good ones in 2-3 games, and maybe not so good in the rest 10-12. We're actually going for that one golden jackpot, when we might be struggling or chasing a big target and Surya Kumar would rescue us. Because that's the sad reality. He is the global superstar, kind of the Pataka poster boy, if I may say so, of Indian cricket and of the Indian young crop of this Indian generation. So that's why we've gone with him. Sanju Samson seems to be one of those players who just go down with the sunset. Beg your pardon. So it's that it is sad, man. It is sad because, as you said, keep his T20 form aside, because ODI is a different game altogether. ODI, your skill of tapping the ball into the gap and picking up a couple of runs, hitting up boundary here and there, maybe getting a six here and there as well. But you really build an innings in ODI cricket while also maintaining your strike rate, which is a great skill to have. But we haven't respected that yet again. We've also seen that with my personal demon, which is Prasidh Krishna. I don't know why he's included in the Asia Cup. If you're taking him on the basis of Ireland, God help us. God help us in the World Cup. But I don't know. Again, maybe now you were playing Mukesh Kumar again and again. Where is he? He was a part of the Indian setup in the limited format as well and in the Test. Mukesh
Yeah.
Kumar, kuch yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's not even,
That's
by the
a
way,
lot.
Australia or any other place wherein Prasidh would get that extra bounce and extra pace. It's going to be in India, so it's not as if we'll have that extra pace advantage with Prasidh. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, this is a very interesting point made by Pranav over here. It's very difficult to drop Sky. His T20 numbers and his potential is too tempting. And when you see Pandya, he can't go from ball number one. And the only player who could possibly do that is Sky at this point. If you look at all the other players,
Yeah,
even Samson, KL, Iyer are similar mold. I think for the defense of Indian selectors, I'd say Samson was fighting with KL and Ishan Kishan over there for the wicket keeping spot. You can't carry three wicket keepers. But whereas you can say Sky was fighting with no one at that point. He did not have a competitor as a finisher. Now that is where Sky gets his noses ahead.
yeah,
I don't think Sky is a starter in this team as well. If you have KL and Iyer in your team, Sky does not even make it to the team. Now that is what's been concerning. Now if Sky is not going to make it to the team, now what's the point of having him in the team? Now that is one part of discussion. So KL will bat number 5, Iyer at 4, Pandya at 6, and Jadeja at 7, and that's about it. Then you will have your ballers to follow. So that is where India had to really draw parallels as to where we're going to fit our players. Or else, in that regard, I think at least for the first two matches, as if Ishan as KL is not fit, what do you do then? If KL is not fit there, then you have to play Ishan Kishan in the middle of the order, which you have not tried him at all. Even in West Indies, you played him as a backup opener. That's again now shifting a lot of building blocks here and there. So that is
yeah.
where my problem is with the team as to Why did you carry Samson in the squad with you if you knew, okay, he's part of the reserves, but he's still not part of the team? You will still have to
Isn't
replace someone to have Samson in the team. So then it's a complete chaotic situation. At least you could have put Samson instead of a Tilak. I know Tilak is a left-hander, different breed altogether, but then considering that KL is 100% fit and he might miss the first two matches, that's game against Pakistan, game against Nepal, and possibly a Super Force game. So that certainly means that you are taking way too much of a risk to go in with KL, and there is no surety that he might have a rupture in the Asia Cup. Because remember, that's going to be a lot of intensity uh,
it
to
is?
play Asia Cup in those conditions and to come back. What if KL gets injured in the middle of the World Cup? Who do you have? Literally nobody. You can't play Asian at the middle of the order. Then you have to shift the entire batting order to just fit in Asian Kishan. So
Yeah.
that is where I believe taking these risks are not worth it because you're just going behind a KL Rahul. I know his numbers are very tempting, but are his numbers that tempting to really spoil your entire team in the middle of the tournament? Because remember last year, I think it was in 2019, because Shikhar Dhawan got injured, you had to change your entire batting order, put KL on the top of the order, then you have to bring in someone at number four. That by then it was already gone. Your entire batting order was done and
Yep.
dusted. Vijay Shankar was tried, Rishabh Pant was tried. So this is the issue with me, I think that is why selectors need to be even more strict and not give that leeway to a player who can possibly get injured again. Now with KL Rahul, his injury list is long. What are your thoughts on that, Antariksh, on the same thing?
I think you have absolutely hit the nail on the head there because we just lack options and we have it's almost like we are treading on this thin line for a long time. It's not been a short while. It's been a long while since we have had this lack of backups and lack of a strategy, a direction in moving forward. I know there was an emergency and that's why we had to change the guy, but changing your selector just before the World Cup isn't good news anytime soon. Obviously, there was an emergency and sort of a leak attested to it, but still, Ajit Agarkar coming in and now he would have his plan, or he doesn't have much time left to the World Cup. So, as you said, we have one player injured from those that vulnerable category. We have to shift like our batting order like a deck of cards yet again. Like maybe who has to drop down, then maybe we try out Asian Kishan again as the opener and maybe give Gill the test match role. I don't know, what do we got to do, because you can't just keep Gill, Rohit and Virat there and then your your middle order, beg your pardon, being what it is. So it's you've absolutely spotted it right. And as exactly, I mean, my question is the same here as career counselors, that why is Chahal not being picked? And it's not for me about him being picked. It's more about where is the diversity when you're giving someone like a Prasid Krishna a chance out of nowhere. Then like what do you expect it to be in terms of like he's a leg spinner who would be an absolute asset in the Indian conditions. So
Yeah,
maybe you try him out. Maybe you don't, as you said, you don't stick to someone like if you have to rest in or if you don't have to play Sanju Samson, you put him there, because let's be honest, if you're actually putting a player who's injured, who'll be injured maybe till the fourth or the third match at least, and then you're putting Sanju Samson, you might as well not pick him. Like, is it to just please us, the fans? Ki Nana Sanju is still here with us, because either he's in the squad or he's out of it. I don't know when an assistant or a traveling whatever this guy is traveling extra man kicks in, because we
yeah,
aren't going to go suddenly overnight. Okay, right. We have that travel wala Sanju Samson. Let's pick him in the squad. He might as well,
yeah.
because when now KL Rahul would not be there, you've actually picked up Tilak Verma in the main squad. So obviously you'll prefer him. You won't go to the traveling guy first then.
Yeah.
So as you rightly mentioned, Sanju Samson is almost as good as not being there. So yeah, man.
Yeah, that's really concerning as well because of that particular reason. That when are you really going to kick in and say, okay, yeah, even here Pranav say that Sanju is more closer to playing in the playing 11. That certainly means you picked the wrong squad once again. KL was not supposed to be fit, and then you have to exclude KL at some point. Let's say you have to replace a player to bring in Sanju Samson. Now that's my only issue here. But other than that, why is Tehel not there in the playing 11? I think that's an interesting one. You did just throw some light into it. I personally think he did not, he couldn't make it to the team because If India were to go with four pacers, then Chahal does not make it the team. But then, even if you look at the 17-member squad in comparison with the 15-member you're going to have for the World Cup, I think even in the squad, you're going to see two players which are going to be left out. And it's very clear who are going to be the two players. It's going to be Prasid and Tilak Verma, who will be left out for the World Cup. At least as of now, it stands. Only 15 can certainly travel in the World Cup. At least you have to submit a 15-member provisional squad by the 5th of September. So Chahal certainly does not make it. Or else you have to replace Chahal with Akshar. I think Akshar still has a chance of making it to the playing 11 because he bats a little bit. He can be a direct replacement for Shardul Thakur at number 8, if at all the pitch turns. So that's one area which comes into play. Or else you needed to have someone like a Washington Sundar in that similar mold who can bat and ball a little bit, or an Ashwin, which is also another shout out. I'm very surprised that his name did not come for selection or for discussion. If it would
I
have,
don't know.
it's not a bad thing at all. I would you have really considered Ashwin over here over
I
a
would have.
lot of these players?
You
Because
you know my opinion.
you would have.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I would have.
Yeah, that's interesting because he has not played a lot of limited overs cricket in the last 18 months, and he's going to make it to the World Cup and the big events like that. Because I would have, considering the World Cup is in India, and he can bat well as well. Now, if you look at the last 1 year, his batting has gone up. If you really wanted a bowler who can pick up wickets and then score a little bit of runs, that was Ashwin for me. And I don't think Akshar really gives me that confidence with the ball. Even now, on turning wickets, yes, he's good. But on flatter surfaces, does he give me that extra bit of variety? No, he doesn't. He becomes one dimensional alongside Jadeja. Then Kuldeep becomes the only variety there. That's why no Chahal, then you could have at least gone for an Ashwin in that discussion. But your thoughts personally on having no Chahal at all in this team?
Yeah, but as I said, as I put my thoughts across, Chell, any one of these selections, it's not about that one particular player in isolation or how he could have gone in. As we have discussed on the show, me and Abel both, it's like a combination. It's more of a methodical thing. कि क्या methodology है इनको लेने की rather than what the players are like. There has to be a clear structure on the basis of what the players are being selected. You can talk about Chahal, but you may as well talk about Ravi Ashwin there as well. Because we in India we need to get the excuses out of the way. Like, they are professional cricketers. They play cricket all year round, whether they're seen here or not. Ben Stokes has come out of retirement. Moeen Ali came out of retirement to play the Ashes. Ben
Yeah.
Stokes has come out of retirement now and he'll play the World Cup. Then what about, again, and then it's Ashwin we're talking about. And I don't know what we're trying to be progressive about in terms of not even considering Ashwin. Abel, I said this before as well. I don't know what. I just hope there isn't one match where we'd hope कि काश हमारे पास अश्विन होता in Indian conditions. Because you know what, if you're going into a typical Indian pitch, I'd go with three spinners, two pacers, and one Hardik Pandya. I would absolutely be okay with that. I would. I'd be very very okay
Maybe
with
you can
that.
answer this question as well, meanwhile, from Pranav, as you answer that.
Yeah, he says, I don't think we'll see pitches with a lot of help for the spinners. That hasn't been the case for long in ODIs. India has both the type of spinners who can take the ball away from the lifetime, which is a good point. I do agree with that. That we have good variety in Kuldeep Yadav, as well as the two sort of direct spinners in Ravi Jadeja and also Akshar Patel. But what I'm trying to say is that you have a World Cup in India. Ashwin, even in the IPL, I saw him. He has the tricks up his sleeve. He has that limited because he plays cricket from here, and anytime you do it from here, you're very rarely to sort of run out of ideas and be outnumbered or out generationalized by someone. And I think he's in that category. And I'm not saying that he deserves and he this. I'm saying is there has to be a buzz about him. He's there's Anil Kumble in spinners in Test cricket, and then there is Ravi Ashwin for us almost there. He is a maestro with that ball, and the World Cup is in India, guys. So I don't know. I just feel that it's way too
I
easy
mean,
to leave him
for
out.
me, that's why I'll put up this interesting stat as well now. Now that we're talking about all the bowlers and every single person, I think this is a stat which we have on the screen right now, which is about the leading wicket takers for India since 2011 World Cup. 2019 World Cup, sorry. Your Shardul Thakur surprisingly at 52 wickets. Uh, if we just go by numbers, he deserves a walk in straight away. Then you have a Kuldeep Yadav at number 2, Siraj. Then comes Chahal at 37. Not a bad shot at all. Chahal is right up there. Prasidh Krishna has played very limited number of games and he's been in 25, and Mohammad Shami at 35 as well. But if you look, one of the best averages for Mohammad Siraj, obviously he's been our number one bowler as well in power play and death. Shardul Thakur, does he give you the confidence? I know numbers suggest one thing, but does he give you the confidence to be your third seamer and maybe your fifth bowler in the team? For me, if you ask me personally, he doesn't. I have my reasons for that because I know the wickets do suggest something, but he can be targeted. You put Shardul against a good batting attack, he can be put up against. You have seen that in the IPL. You've seen that in multiple occasions as well. He can be ran behind, and he has no option for that. Now that is where the question comes: are you ready to sacrifice your tail and play three out and out fast bowlers and a Kuldeep Yadav, which is Shami, Siraj, and Bumrah with Kuldeep Yadav starting at number 8, 9, 10, 11. Now that makes your tail becomes less. You have no batting option at number 8. So that's one of the reasons why it's going to be Shardul Akshar as the only fight there. Shardul is like a fit into that team, and that spot for the third seamer is definitely not there. It's Siraj and Bumrah, and or Siraj or Shami with Shardul slash Akshar. So that is the only problem, only thing for me here. Now that is where I would have really loved to have seen Ashwin. I know it's an out of the box discussion because we did not talk about Ashwin for the last 17 months, but all of a sudden we are talking about it because he is at least more likely to pick up wickets than a Shardul Thakur for me in important situations against quality batters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one always with Shardul Thakur because I've seen it firsthand in test matches. It's almost like when we can't get the likes of Joe Root and Steve Smith out, I almost think back, Shardul ko de do bowling. I think he'll just do it. I don't know how he'll do it, but he might get a chop on, he might get a leading edge, he might bowl a slower ball in the test game and actually take the wicket. But he has that knack, so that's why it's a difficult one with him because it would have been helpful if had there been the economies attested to the whole sort of stat which we looked at. That would have given us a better perspective of the whole bowling scenario because I think that is where Shardul might be going out for a bit. But as we saw, he doesn't really pass the eye test of many, but to the surprise, he's actually the leading wicket taker. So I mean, it'll only be sort of false if you quote it this way that India's leading wicket taker is being quoted as not being able to take wickets in the World Cup. So you can't really say that, can you? So that's the thing with Shardul Thakur, and it's a case with him every time. But
I
that's
think
what
this
I'm
is also a very interesting point that just to stop you there, Antariksh. I mean, you can add
yeah, yeah,
this
go
as
on.
well while you talk about Ash has not been able to take an ODS. I mean, I've been the biggest propagator in the last one. He's saying Ash should not be there in ODS because he's very defensive. He got dropped out of the 2017 right after the Champions Trophy because of his defensive bowling prowess. And even in 2021, when we traveled South Africa, that was his last one-day series, if I remember. He was taken all around the park because he was
Yeah.
very defensive. But if you look, all these happen outside India. We're talking about surfaces where we're going to play in Lucknow, Chennai, Delhi. These are surfaces which turn big time. And
Yeah, exactly.
so
Exactly.
there,
That's the thing.
who is
India
a
is the
better
only
one? Shardul, Ashwin, or Akshar? I would say Ashwin is going to be much tougher to get away with in comparison with a Shardul or an Akshar in these conditions.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's only a debate. It's not even a debate because there isn't any, but we're only talking about him because it's in India. Had it been even outside India in the subcontinent and stuff, I wouldn't have been the biggest. I wouldn't have even talked about him because he has been out of the group. But all I'm saying is, we can't be making a fuss about all of these things because we saw Moeen Ali, we saw Ben Stokes, and they are professional cricketers, and he's not a youngster who hasn't played anything. He's Ashwin, and he knows the game better than anyone. So it's and to not drag that point too much. It's just that I'm pretty surprised, and that's my opinion, that I'm pretty surprised that it's like almost become very easy to drop Ashwin from the Indian team when the World Cup is in India. That's it. I myself, had he been even in the squad, I myself wouldn't have maybe found a place for him in the starting 11. That's all I say. But anyways, as I was saying, I think it's as we were talking about Shardul Thakur, that I somehow find a place for him, and that has got to do more with the long tail because it's not about number 11, 10, 9, and 8. It's more about we don't even have much at 7 and 6. It's not like we have genuine batsmen who can genuinely. We don't have a Jack Scarlett or a or a Ben Stokes there who we can just absolutely rely on. We have a Hardik Pandya who, I mean, he has started bowling, obviously, but with the bat, with the ball, he's sort of, I call these players a bit of Darren Sammy, There are some players who can do a bit of both, but there are some players who can do a bit of neither. So I think Hardik Pandya would be creeping in some in that into sort of that category. Wherein Darren Sammy you couldn't rely him to bowl 10 overs, then you couldn't rely him to make 80 runs. So what do you do? But कहने को तो he's an all-rounder. So he's
I
sort
still
of
say
creeping.
Hardik Pandya is better than Darren Sammy. Come on.
He is. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting him in the sort of the Darren Sammy cricketer ka bracket, wherein I'm not confident with him either on the batting side or on the bowling side. Like with
Yeah.
a Jadeja, I'm more confident on the bowling side. कि ये 10 over दे देगा. With an Akshar Patel, with a Ashwin, even with a Ben Stokes bat के साथ. But with him, I am like 70-30 or 30-70. It keeps flickering on. So with that in mind, if he has to come at 6 and then Jadeja at 7, and then with the tail being as it is, I think it almost becomes a necessity to have someone like a Shardul Thakur who at least has that handy average and can hit around the park when needed at 8, because then at 9, 10, 11, it's almost dead.
Makes sense. Makes sense. That's only right that you mentioned that we need a good tail as well. If you look at England or if you look at New Zealand for that matter, even for Australia, they've got batters who can bat 8, 9, 10, and that's very important if you're talking about the latter end of the games. But there again, that's a good point by Pranav again about the dew
Yeah,
factor. But let's be very honest. In good surfaces, I think dew factors with good quality spinners, they can always handle it. With a
yeah.
wrist spinner, he can always be good with the dew factor. I mean, I would say where the dew factor will really come into play. Dharamshala, yes, the dew factor will kick in there. Or for that matter, if you're playing in Delhi, uh, towards
I don't think
November
it's really
end,
going to
yes,
trigger in October much, the dew factor. Obviously,
yes, it's
November it may, as you said, in
November, yes.
Dharamshala and
That's
stuff.
right. Delhi also in November, yes. And you're going to be playing on October 11th in Delhi. I think it's still early part. It's one of the best weathers to play. So that's very important to look into. November is primarily knockouts, and knockouts are going to be towards middle of November and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to be a major factor. I'm just talking about Lucknow at least. Lucknow is another ground where you're going to be playing England there. So what is your best option to negate England, who's got so many left-handers? Like for that matter, I know Kuldeep Yadav takes the ball away from them, but again, I think it's better to go in attachment. That was the only debate over here, but I think we are over that by now. If we just want to
Yeah.
look into the squad once again, before we look at the fast ballers set of things, who doesn't who makes it to your starting 11? Is it Siraj or Shami? Because if Shardul Thakur definitely takes a spot with Kuldeep Yadav there. Kuldeep Yadav is no negotiations. Kuldeep Yadav is your number one spinner right now in the team. No negotiations about it. It's as important as Jasprit Bumrah. Bumrah takes one spot, and then the question comes who takes the latter spot. Is it going to be Shami or Siraj? Because, in my opinion, I'll go with Siraj because he's been the better one. He can give you a little bit in the depth as well. He's been extremely consistent in picking up wickets in the power play, and he can ball in the middle overs as well. With Shami, I know he's damn good, and there's little to separate between the two. But yeah, my liking is towards Siraj, just in certain facets that he's much more all round. He can come back and ball in the death as well if need be, alongside Bumrah, which gives us a bank in the last 8 overs. With Shami still a question mark.
I agree, and we may. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Siraj goes in front of Shami. Not to take anything away from Shami, but Siraj has. We discussed it earlier. Like Siraj has gone from that. He's taken that step above that world class step. In football, we say this player could be world class on their day and stuff, and then to make that transition from on their day to actually being world class consistently, I think Siraj has really done that. And throughout, you could just see his stature growing. Like he bowls abroad, like he belongs there. He bowls in Test match cricket with ferocity, with viciousness in his eyes. Then you see in T20, he again he doesn't break his style. He's in one of those who breaks his style for a format. He hits the deck hard and he keeps it hitting irrespective of whatever format you're playing. So I just feel he deserves to be in that. And if I put the math correctly, we again, although it does sacrifice our batting order a bit, we might see a situation wherein we might actually go with only one spinner, and we actually could have these all three gentlemen actually playing together. We might see that as well. So that's an option. maybe I think Kuldeep Yadav has to play there. Or if you think too much about the batting lineup and you want to play these three, maybe then you have to go with Ravi Jadeja as the only spinner to actually bolster your batting lineup. So it's like a garden of permutations and combinations. You could pick your pick there, but truth be told, Siraj makes it if it was a 50-50 between these. But I think it'll be far from that. I think it'll be, as I said, it'll be a variety of combinations to pick and choose from, and you can't pick a bet as to who's going to start or who's going to not.
Absolutely. And that's why it's going to be very tough for the Indian team management to really showing on who's going to be the three seamers, because I still think it's going to be Shardul, Siraj, Bumrah, and Kuldeep as India's bowling contingent, with Jadeja and
Yeah.
Hardik sharing the all round responsibility. That looks like a good team. If you have to choose a playing 11, it's going to be Shubman, Rohit, Virat, KL, Shreyas, Hardik, Jadeja, Shardul, then the rest, Kuldeep. I think India looks pretty settled, at least on paper, and it all depends on performance. Now you have 9 games certainly before the World Cup. Is that good enough rope for Shreyas and KL to get back in form if they're 100% fit?
No point, man. No point discussing this. As I said, हमारे पास और option क्या है? Because we are lack of options. We've just got to hope and pray, because you might as well take 2-3 games out of it for someone like a KL Rahul, because as you rightly mentioned, he's out anyway. So that's just 6 games. So as I said, fingers crossed karo and hope that they come in and they just start performing. And even if they don't, I don't listen. If they absolutely fail in the Asia Cup, do you think they're not going to make it to the World Cup? They are.
They
Again,
are.
either way, we don't have any option. So you just, if you would have one prayer, just make it कि वो World Cup में run बनाए. You make that one prayer, because ऐसा situation हुआ, they actually start scoring in the Asia Cup, and when it comes to the World Cup, bang. So if you have one prayer, guys, make it that these both score in the World Cup. So because irrespective of what they do in the 9 games, nothing is going to fill us with that level of confidence that yes, they are back, because 9 games to a World Cup is way too less. But as we discussed,
Yeah.
not many
I
options
think
there.
that's what we think, but that's certainly not what Indian selectors and management think. They still say that they want to experiment a little bit in Asia Cup as well. So, so it's very tough to convince them. They see 9 games as a lot of games, and we
Yeah,
certainly see this as a very less number of games. Yeah, I think Pranav, that's where I think Indian team will look to maybe use Jadeja as a middle order batter, number 5 if need be, or number 4 if need be on occasions if some
yeah.
left arm spinner or a leggy is looking like having a good day. Or maybe if you have Akshar Patel in the team, you can even use him at number 5. So not a bad option if you have two left-handers to a lower middle order who can be shifted up. I don't think that will be a major concern with India. That's one of the reasons why Tilak Verma is also selected. If at all Shreyas Iyer doesn't do well and his fitness doesn't look at peak, maybe then Tilak Verma can be used in. I know it's like throwing a player right into deep sea, straight into an Asia Cup or a World Cup. But I think Tilak can do a decent job, and I personally think I know Tilak. Someone just wrote that Tilak was exposed in Ireland. I still think yeah, I think this was Prakash saying, and which is Prakash's question. I think Prakash's question was Tilak Verma got exposed against Ireland. Yeah, this was what he was saying. That's what I was saying. Tilak Verma. I don't think it's still early to judge him. Everybody fails. Even
Yeah,
Dhoni did
exactly.
fail against Bangladesh. Come on, it's just too critical on him that he failed in 2 of the innings. He scored a duck and scored 1 run, but there is something about him. What are your thoughts on it? If at all Tilak Verma is to be thrown into the World Cup, would you be keen enough to throw him? Because he can ball a little bit of off spin if need be, can bat left hand, can solve that issue of not having a left hand in the top 7, top 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a luxury problem to solve right now, because it's like we haven't got the basics covered and we're looking for, what clothes to wear and what shoes to buy. So it's like you get the basics covered first. I think you can't really use the word exposed for someone like Tilak Varma. It's too early, because it would be exposed if he was not scoring for a year. He's barely put on jersey for us. So that is that. But what do you do, man? Because you play him against the French teams, but then that's not him being tested in the real metal. So I just believe, it's one for the hopes and the prayers. Maybe he gets a game in the Asia Cup, he scores 100, he makes it to the World Cup reserves or whatever. If there's a reserve tank to be
He
filled in
scores
World
a
Cups.
hundred anywhere there. He makes it to the World Cup without a doubt. And if he
Yeah,
scores
that's what
it
I'm
on
saying.
that game in September 2nd, He'll be a household name. When he scored
Oh,
against Pakistan, you're remembered for a long
that's
time.
the thing, man. That's the thing. The that is in summation. What you just said there, that is in summation of what we have been saying here and what we mean as an overall. Cricketing selection or any sport selection isn't based on just sport itself. Emotion and opportunity is such a big part of it. Imagine he gets ducks, and then he scores 150, a match-winning 150 against Pakistan. Do you really think someone would even care about that his average right now is 37.75 in the Asia Cup after scoring three ducks? No, they won't. Everyone would look at the 150 he scored and ignore the because it's against Pakistan. It's the Asia Cup, or for an Asia Cup semi-final or a final if we go there. If someone scores there, no one looks at something beyond that. So there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of stakes, there's a lot of
Yeah, all of a sudden the
opportunity
tag is
involved.
he's a big game player. He doesn't. He's not a minnow basher. He's a big game player. That's a tagline
Yeah.
which we carry. Which I think,
You just
I
start
don't
him in
think
the World
Tilak
Cup
will
final
start.
then.
Yeah, I also don't think Tilak will start until unless there's something issue with Shreyas Iyer, because you need a wicket keeping option. So if Kale is not there, again you're going back to Ishan Kishan meddling with the batting order again, shift here and there. That's why my question was. That's why I raised that point of why KL, if he's not fit, he'll come back from super force. He will, and what's the surety that he's going to remain a sustained fit throughout the Asia Cup if he's just getting off an injury? Remember, he has to keep for 300 balls. That too against spinners, against pacers, up, down, and he had injuries in leg, not anywhere else. Now, if it was Dhoni, yes, I understand. He's a walk-in. We're
That's
talking
a
about
different
KL
league.
Rahul, not Dhoni over here. And I
Yeah.
don't think anybody in Indian cricket has got. If it's Virat Kohli, Rohit, or Dhoni, yes, I understand. Even for the matter, Bumrah, it's not KL Rahul for me, and that's my personal take on it. And that's why I personally feel Sanju Samson should have been there instead of KL Rahul in that particular position. If KL Rahul wasn't fit, if KL Rahul is 100% fit, it doesn't matter for me. Now, that's so many of concerns which to be risen up at a later stage. As of now, I'll give a 7 on 10 to the Asia Cup squad for India. What are your rating for this final thoughts? Because at least it looks good on paper to satisfy our own doubts.
I'd mirror that as well because I think 3 marks being deducted is just for the overall planning, man. And you can't really do much about it now because, yeah, of course, it could have been a 7.5 or an 8 had you put Samson where he deserved to be, or at least we would have seen a methodology again, how and everyone, why they're being picked or what's happening. But we can't. So I think we've just got to go with it. And as you said, at least on paper, we look a bit settled. But I don't think it'll be as settled as we think because yeah, there'll be changes. That's the thing, you know. If I take a football analogy there, I think you have to take one page out of Pep's book. You know, we are too individual reliant. Like we've seen throughout the years how he's a system kind of a manager. And if I put that to cricket, it's not like we have a role for our number four, we have a role for our number five. It's like Shreyas Iyer hoga, that's how our team would be. That's how our batting lineup would be. Rahul hoga, that's how our lineup would be. We don't have roles defined for positions, and you know this guy's going to be conservative when we're good, and this guy's going to go and stuff. This guy will be the finisher. It's like, oh no, they all play IPL. Anyone who's there, he'll finish it off. You know, they all play the IPL. They all play the Test match. They could
Yeah.
see it out. They all play ODI. They could see it out. So we don't
Yeah.
have roles assigned to even people as well as the positions they bat at or they ball at, which is, and why am I going into football? I'd actually take it something from the English cricket team. You know, we've seen it since
Yeah,
their
very simple.
resurgence. They've had very, very defined roles, and especially people negate that, especially in their bowling lineup. And I'm referring here to the Test team, obviously,
Yeah.
right now. So because I've seen they have specified roles, and each and every player knows what they have to do, when they got to attack, when they got to sort of calm their attack and stuff. So I just see that missing, but I mimic your score of 7 for our selection team. Yeah.
Interesting. That's very interesting. And I think that's where I'd put myself as well in that same position. Yeah, that's about it from us. Thank you for joining. And it was a healthy discussion on a lot of things. It's an Indian squad which has been announced. So obviously, we had to talk about that. Thank you all for joining. It was a pleasure taking all your questions. There were some really interesting points made by all of you. So that was lovely to see. And we'll be back very soon because we'll try to analyze at least all the squads before the Asia Cup as we build into it. Maybe we can give a day for every team and we build into that particular Asia Cup. And then, of course, that's the only marquee event at this point. We are just 11 days away from that. And we'll be back very soon. And the footballing action is on as well. So do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Also share these videos with as many people as possible. And also, do not forget to check out our courses with Mad About Sports. The link is there in the description. And this is your opportunity to check that out. And have a good time, all of you. See you all very, very, very soon. Bye bye.